For me, it began when I was a child, you know, there's been a point in my life where I have been able to look back and realise that that is the moment that I decided that I wanted to be an addict, which sounds like a really weird thing to say. And I didn't want all the stress and trouble and that comes with being an addict, but what I wanted was to feel like I saw other people looking. I'm the eldest in my family, I'm the eldest of three. I never felt like I fitted. My earliest memories are of lots of things, but of myself are of, you know, stealing fizzy bottles out of people's garages to sell for lollies, damaging neighbourhood property, and always wanting to be somewhere where I wasn't, and always thinking that when I got there that everything would be better, and just feeling like a misfit. So it just grew from there, really. School, high school, teenage pregnancy, experimenting with drugs, feeling like it was exhilarating and fun and I was having a good time, and not really realising the damage that I was doing to myself and to my spirit. Having another child about every 4 years. Experiencing quite a horrific act of violence at the hands of somebody else. I suddenly found myself old and addicted to drugs, and on drug replacement therapy, so that was methadone, with all these kids that I couldn't take care of, and things were really chaotic and out of control. You know, I would leave my children home alone and shoplift. And so my eldest daughter said to me, "Mum, I don't like it. You know, like, you can't leave us home alone. Like, I'm only 12 or whatever she was at the time, you know, please don't leave me home alone." And I said, "I know, love, I know." And she said, "No, I don't like it. You can't leave us home alone, and your friends come over and they're scary. We're scared of them." And I know, love, I know, I promise I won't do it anymore. And I did. You know, like, I just kept doing it because it didn't matter how much I didn't want to do those things. I was powerless. I remember feeling frustrated because I couldn't get the butter to spread nicely on the toast. And I didn't always make toast, and there wasn't always food in the cupboards. But I couldn't get this butter to spread one day, and my kids were hungry. And instead of just giving them the toast like it was, I threw the toast. And you know, they still didn't get to eat. And I remember, you know, they stopped looking me in the eye, and they had dark circles, and they just looked haunted. What happened? Gosh, you know, I probably would have just carried on like that for a really long time, because I'd gotten into a bit of a cycle, and I wasn't functioning well in society. My little boy died. His name was Terence, and that's a picture of him there. And he was one of twins. They were my last children, and so I just didn't want to experience that, didn't want to feel that. That was like the mother of all pains. And I guess I carried on for about another 2 years after that, until I hit my rock bottom and couldn't continue. By then, I kind of had nobody left. I was spiritually bankrupt. My little boy had died. My 2 elder children had left home. And my other 2 children had been taken into care because I was unable to keep them safe. And so it was the middle of winter. I had lost all sense of balance, and I sat at the top of the stairs one day. I'd gotten out of the shower, and I stood at the top of the stairs, and I thought, if I try and walk down these stairs, I'm going to break my neck. And so I sat down and I slid down the stairs on my bum. And so my solution to that was to stop showering, because that just seemed like the solution. So my moment was almost like a voice in my head that said to me, if you don't do something about your problem today, you're going to be dead by Friday. And It was a Tuesday, and that was literally the first time in my life that I ever considered life without drugs. So all of those things, like police and children being taken away and death and, you know, one time our flat got burnt out, like those things had already occurred. And so by comparison, it was a very small moment externally. You know, there was none of that happening externally, but inside, the shift was huge. And that's what I hold on to now. You know, I know that if I was to pick up, that I would have 3 days. I believe that I would have 3 days because I've seen other people relapse and they go right back to where they were. And I believe that I was 3 days from death. So the bigness is overcoming the denial. I believe that trauma is the gateway drug. I think that's what leads to addiction. So she certainly experienced enough trauma. My second daughter. And I guess, you know, is it nature or nurture? You know, sometimes it seems to be inherent, you know, in my bones, and I guess it's in hers as well. When she was in care, I would hear her tell her friends, my mum's going to come and get me one day. I'm going to go back and live with my mum. You know, she would tell these stories, and for her, it came true. And I guess I thought, and she thought too, that was enough to undo all of the harm and the pain that she experienced as a child. It turns out it wasn't. So she's got some trauma that she still needs to heal from. She hasn't done the work. She's maybe got a little bit of this in her blood. And so as a young teenager, you know, she started experimenting with alcohol and cigarettes and going out, and she's quite feisty and fiery, and it's led to some long-term addiction challenges for her. So last year it kind of culminated at its peak after about 6 years. And I didn't know how long it had been until she told me last year, 6 to 8 years of using meth. She hit the wall really badly, had a psychotic episode, chopped off all her hair with some blunt scissors that had to be taken off her. And she was skinny, and, you know, her teeth hurt, and it just really, she declined really, really quickly, physically. And the people that she knows, the people that she associates with, the going out, you know, it's all behaviours that I recognise. And I still get so frustrated by it. You know, I recognise it to be true. I know that that's how it was for me. I know that there is a solution. I find myself caught in a really hard place with it. I know the things that I did to survive, and I guess that's where a lot of my pain comes from. I know what it takes to survive as an addict, and I particularly know what it takes to survive as a female addict, because the ways and means of getting more are very much connected to being a woman. And so I would know the things that was happening in her life. And then there was, you know, family violence, domestic violence was happening. I would often go to her house when things were at the worst. I would go to her house and I would toot my horn until she came outside. And she would come outside, and it was terrible to see her. I would say, I think you're going to die today. And sometimes she could hear me and sometimes she couldn't. She would say, oh, no, Mum, I'm not. Stop worrying, everything's okay. And I know that as well, I recognise that too. And then afterwards, when she has, because she did have a few weeks totally abstinent, she said that the days that I would do that were the days that things were at their worst. And she would kind of be almost angry that I was so in tune with what was going on for her, that I would recognise that. I don't think that recovering addicts can ever do it on their own. And so I think she needs to be around other people who are on a similar journey, but people who are themselves now fully abstinent. You know, we have to find a place in society where we can be who we truly are and stand in our own light, but without having to experience that shame and guilt that sits alongside having become an addict or having become addicted to substances. Okay, so my current job, I work for Aviva, and I'm employed to be myself. So I feel really blessed by that. And whilst I don't tell my story all the time, and there are parts of my story that people might be quite surprised by, the essence of who I am and the fact that I'm in recovery, and that sometimes you know, I might reflect on things that happened when I was in addiction is not a secret in my workplace. And I just feel incredibly blessed by that. I've been employed there delivering peer support services. That's working one-on-one with men and women who have used or experienced somebody else's use of family violence. Because with addiction, like the people who are using services, stuff doesn't happen in isolation. I've kind of got this passion for closing the gap between professionals and the community. And so we've been delivering child protection training to the community with a view to that, you know, that it'll decrease the need for specialist intervention. And I just say things like that, and I'm like, who is this person?
It's amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
So my life is very cool today.